Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome back for a brand new week of learning. And for me, a brand new week of teaching. So remember, do more of what makes you happy today. So today I'm going to read Magic Treehouse number 23, Twister on Tuesday by Mary Pope Osborne. So before I start, I'm going to help you remember that Magic Treehouse books 21, 22, 23, and 24, Jack and Annie have a new challenge. They must find 4 special kinds of writing for Morgan's library to help save Camelot. They're about to set off on the 3rd of these with Twister on Tuesday. Chapter 1, Tuesday. Jack opened his eyes. Sunlight streamed through his window. Tuesday, he whispered. Morgan's note had told him and Annie to come back to the Magic Treehouse on Tuesday. They could hardly wait to find out where she was sending them today. Jack scrambled out of bed. He threw on his clothes. He packed his notebook and pencil into his backpack, and then he headed into the hall. Jack bumped into Annie. She was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. Tuesday, they both whispered. Together they hurried down the stairs. Mom, Dad, we're going out for a few minutes, Jack shouted. Don't you want breakfast first? His dad called from the kitchen. When we get back, said Annie. They rushed out the front door. They ran down their street in the bright summer sunlight. A warm wind gently shook the trees as Jack and Annie headed into the Frog Creek woods. Soon they came to the tallest tree in the woods. The Magic Treehouse waited for them in the high branches. Jack and Annie grabbed the rope ladder and climbed up. Inside the shady treehouse, the note from Morgan was still on the floor. Dear Jack and Annie, Camelot is in trouble. To save the kingdom, please find these 4 special kinds of writing for my library. Something to follow, something to send, something to learn, something to lend. Thank you, Morgan. Okay, said Jack. We have the first writing, something to follow. He picked up a list from the Civil War. And we have the second, said Annie, something to send. She picked up a letter from the Revolutionary War. Now we need the third, said Jack, something to learn. No problem, said Annie. She grabbed a book lying in the corner. I hope we're not going back to another war. Jack and Annie looked at the cover. It was a field, and it was just full of tall green grass. And the title was Life on the Prairie. The prairie, said Annie. We already went to the prairie the time we met Black Hawk. Yeah, said Jack, remembering their adventure with the Native American boy. He opened the book and turned to a picture of an old-fashioned train crossing the prairie. Oh, he said, I get it. Trains crossed the prairie after the pioneers came. When we went to the prairie before, Native Americans were the only people who lived there. So we must be going to pioneer time, said Annie. I think so, said Jack. He pointed at the picture that showed the train crossing the prairie. I wish we could go there, he said. The wind picked up. The wind started to blow. The treehouse started to spin. It spun faster and faster. Then everything was still. Absolutely still. Chapter 2. Signs of Life. Jack opened his eyes. He was wearing suspenders and a shirt with the sleeves rolled up. In place of his backpack was a leather bag. Annie was wearing a long dress and a sunbonnet. I like my hat, she said. It will keep the sun off my face. Yeah, except the sun's not shining, said Jack. He and Annie looked out the window. The sky was cloudy. The treehouse had landed in a small grove of trees near a creek. Beyond the trees was a wide, open prairie. Green grass and wildflowers swayed in a chilly wind. In the distance, a train puffed across the prairie. Sparks of fire came out of its smokestack. Huge clouds of black smoke billowed in the gray sky. Wow, said Jack. He looked at the picture of the train in their book and read, this is the factual part. After the Civil War, the U.S. government built railroads to link the eastern and western parts of the country. By the 1870s, steam engines carried people across the Kansas prairie. Jack pulled out his notebook and wrote 1870, trains across Kansas. "Let's get going," said Annie. "We have to find that special writing for Morgan." She started down the ladder. Jack packed his things in his leather bag and climbed down after her. When he stepped onto the ground, Jack looked toward the west. The train was gone. Only a thin trail of smoke floated across the sky. "That train was cool," said Jack. "Yeah, and so is that," said Annie. She pointed in the other direction. Far away in the distance, a line of covered wagons rolled through the rippling grass. Their white coverings billowed in the breeze. Jack pulled out the research book. He found a picture of a wagon train, and he read aloud, "Wagons were the most common way for families to travel west. They could carry clothes, tools, food, and water. A line of wagons was called a wagon train. The white cloth coverings over the wagons almost made them look like sailing ships or schooners. For that reason, covered wagons were sometimes called prairie schooners." Jack looked at the wagons again. They did look like ships sailing across a rippling green sea. I think I agree with Jack. He wrote in his notebook, "Covered wagons equal prairie schooners." "Let's get a closer look," said Annie. She took off across the grass. Jack put away his things and ran after her. As they ran, the wind began to blow harder. The clouds overhead grew darker. "Wait, wait," Jack finally called to Annie. "We'll never catch up to it." They both stopped running. Panting, they watched the wagon train vanish over the horizon. Jack took a deep breath. "What now?" he said. They looked around. All Jack could see was the distant grove of trees with the treehouse. With the train and wagon train gone, there were no signs of life anywhere. No pioneer cabins, no Native American teepees. "How can we find the special writing," said Jack, "if there's nothing and no one out here?" "Oh, yeah," said Annie. "What's that?" She pointed to a rusty pipe sticking out from the top of a small hill. Streaming from the pipe was a column of black smoke. "Oh, man," said Jack, "that is definitely some sign of life." So, come back tomorrow for Chapter 3 called The One-Room Schoolhouse. And thanks again, Landon, for loaning us Magic Treehouse number 23, Twister on Tuesday. See you soon. Bye-bye.